Hi, Tara.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
I'm trying to see people and I'm only seeing myself. Why is that?
Hmm.
That's okay. I'm going to step away and get a snack before the meeting starts.
Okay, I'll chew on my apple. Mhm. Hi, Candace.
Hi, Catherine. How are you?
I'm okay. It's the fall where it's been beautiful all fall, and only recently had a couple of gray days. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi, Rebecca.
Hi.
So are you at the church in your office?
Yes.
Are your boys somewhere in the church with you?
No, they're at
Oh.
home with my mom.
Oh, okay.
They're too distracting.
Kids are distracting.
When I try to do this from home, they're knocking on my door and they're like sticking things under my door, trying to open and peek in. So.
How old are they again?
Going outside, throwing rocks at your window.
Saying things loud. See if mom can hear us. They are 5 and 9.
Oh, yes. Very full of energy and fun.
Oh, yes. And especially they get really excited when mom gets home. So,
well, that's a nice sign, isn't it?
yes.
Yeah. Well, who's more rambunctious, your 5-year-old or your 9-year-old?
It just depends.
Okay.
they're both pretty rambunctious.
Yeah.
All really good though. All really good.
Yeah. I was lucky. I mean, it can differ, but I had a boy and a girl, and my boy was like 3 times as much work as my daughter.
Yeah.
If not 10 times as much more work.
I have nothing to compare it to.
But he was lovely. He just like to push the envelope.
Always. Yeah. I have nothing to compare it to. So for me, they're just rambunctious, fun boys, and we have a lot of fun.
You're fading in and out a lot, Candace. I don't know if there's
I
anything.
bet you do. Well, you know, this happened a couple weeks ago, so I will stop the video and see. Can you hear me better now?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, well, when my turn to speak, I'll just turn off the video,
Okey doke.
okay?
Hi, Tom and Dorothy. And Betsy. Hi, Betsy.
Oh, it's Betsy in real time.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. I've come over to the other side, the dark side, the light side, the video side. I don't know.
The Zoom side.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm on Teams all the time, and for work, you know, we do calls all the time, and nobody does video. Like nobody. I asked,
Interesting.
yeah, I asked the client about it,
Oh,
and they were like,
really? Oh,
well, we
wow.
don't want to force anybody, you know, to be on video because they're all working from home, and I don't know. So,
I actually find it less distracting. Not only not to see myself, but I concentrate better when I don't have as much visual distraction.
well,
And
I know what you mean, Catherine. That's like PowerPoints. People do PowerPoints and they talk through them. And if I just close my eyes, I get more out of it than if I look at the PowerPoint.
yes, me too.
Mhm.
Well, are we all here? I think so.
Well, I don't think Dick's here.
Sorry. So the weather was too rough for you, Betsy, out on the road?
Yeah, was headed back over to Idaho today, y'all, but I would have missed the first hour of this call. There's not great cell phone coverage between here and there, Catherine. So
Yeah.
I calculated it and I was kind of tired. And so I was like, I think I'll go at 5 a.m. I'm not a 5 a.m. person, like my friend Lynn.
Yeah.
I'm not a 5 a.m. get out of the house kind of person, though. I'm just a 5 a.m. in my
Wake up.
pajamas on the couch kind of person.
Whenever we were kids and my mom took us on a long drive, we were up and out of the house at 3:45 in the morning.
Whoa.
She is capable of
Mm.
long driving.
Mm.
I just checked the clock here in my, and there's nothing before 7 a.m. It's just blank.
Not early morning, Tom. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. 7 a.m. I'm up and at 'em, but before that,
Perfect.
it has to be a crisis.
That's perfect.
So Dick didn't say he had plans for being anywhere else today. No, I don't think.
I will call or send a text or something while you all get, started. If you
Yeah,
Okay.
shall we go ahead and start? He can
Yeah.
pick
Well,
up.
does anybody have any amendments to the agenda for tonight?
I suggested, I think when I called you a little while ago, Catherine, I thought I might not be here, that I could give a brief report, treasurer's quarterly report, verbal only. Sorry, I don't have lovely notes like Candace as ops team liaison.
Yeah, that sounds great. Maybe we could fit that in after the repair and replacement report. Does that make sense?
That'd be great. It'll be like 10 minutes. So, right.
Okay.
Dick. Yay.
Yay, Dick.
Mhm.
So we just asked for any, if there are any amendments to the agenda. Did you have any?
He might not be on audio yet.
Okay.
You know, it's like a two-step process on Zoom.
Hi, Dick. Did you have any amendments to the agenda? Okay. So opening words with Lynn.
Okay, I found us a nice poem, guys, called Neighbors in October by David Baker. And it goes like this. All afternoon, his tractor pulls a flat wagon with bales to the barn, then back to the waiting chopped field. It trails a feather of smoke. Down the block, we bend with the season, shoes to polish for a big game, storm windows to batten or patch. And how like a field is the whole sky now, that the maples have shed their leaves too. It makes us believers, stationed in groups, leaning on rakes, looking into space. We rub blisters over billows of leaf smoke, or stand alone, bagging gold for the cold days to come.
Lovely.
That is
It
beautiful.
reminds me of some books I used to read many years ago about a woman who moved with her children and her best friend up to a place in Connecticut, out in the middle of lots of fields and farms and things of that nature. Very pretty.
Lovely.
And as to the president's report, I don't have anything really to report. I'm interested in the other reports that are coming up, though. This looks like an interesting meeting. I'm looking forward to it. So sounds like Rebecca is next in line.
All right. Well, that was quick.
Actually, you've got to deal with your minutes, don't you?
Oh. Uh-oh, sorry. Any amendments or changes to the minutes? Thank you, Tom. Okay, onward to Rebecca.
All right. Well, I just decided to come and join you all tonight to give a little report about our repair and replacement reserve in conjunction with our long-term maintenance plan. So I'm going to share my screen if that's okay.
Yes.
Buddy. And so this is the spreadsheet that was created by, I believe it was Don Willingham, Tom Mosier, and Dan Ekert, maybe in 2012 or 2014, somewhere around there. I just went through and as best as I could updated it with our needs that are more current, kind of where we're at with those. They've been prioritized. The approximate costs and future costs, those we kind of have to take with a grain of salt because everything changes so quickly with pricing and things. But it just gives us an idea of what we're looking at. So I just want to go over this really quickly. And then the second page I'll show you is things that we've recently accomplished with this plan. So the first items here, you can see we've got our description, we've got our priorities, year needed. These are also kind of, a lot of these things are kind of like, well, wait and see. Well, we can keep maintaining them until, but they're kind of the things that are coming down the pike and approximate costs. Again, installation year, these are as close as I could get. And the lifespan, we hope those are as accurate as they can be. So the big ones coming down probably in the next couple of years, we've got the HVAC system in the sanctuary. That's our heating and air conditioning. We keep getting this one. We have it very faithfully maintained every year, and we have additional repairs as needed. as time goes on, the repairs get more and more expensive and the problems get more and more complicated. So this is a big one that will probably need to be replaced. The guy just came and repaired it today and he said it's looking pretty good. So he doesn't think this year or even next year. So this might be 2024, 25. We might be looking at this one. But this system has some unique issues as it's technically a rooftop unit. And for some reason, we didn't install it on our flat roof. We had it installed on the ground in front of the sanctuary. Whoever made that decision, I'm sure there was a valid reason for it at the time, but it creates a little more problems where it just has to be worked on a little more often. So this one is probably around 31 to 35,000. That may or may not be true. I'm not sure when that original estimate was received, but we'll get estimates as we need. We do need to have all of our toilets replaced. We have continual issues with them, and I've been told by 2 different plumbing companies that they're older toilets and they just don't work with the new systems the city has in place as far as water pressure and things like that. So in order to get them to stop continually clogging, we do need to replace them, and it's more cost effective to replace them all at once than one at a time because it's less expensive, but it is an expensive project. So we're looking at 6,000 to 8,000 to replace those. Those are kind of our top 2 items. We of course have our roof on here and shingles on the original building. So we're looking at 2027. We had that assessed in 2022 earlier this year, and they said we have at least 5 years on this roof or until it leaks. That could be before 5 years, that could be after 5 years, but they said our roof looks in really good shape. As we get down below on the things we have accomplished, you'll see that we did have some shingles replaced a few years ago. So we are also maintaining that as it goes, but that one's of course the big looming project. Around 90,000 is what we're looking at for that. The refrigerator in the kitchen, and there's an old window in that kitchen. I guess we were looking at replacing. That refrigerator is really struggling. So that's something that we have been discussing in the operations team. The parking lot ceiling and striping, that's an ongoing one. We usually have it resealed about every 10 to 15 years. That's like re-asphalting it, like basically re-oiling the whole thing, whatever the whole top coat is. Every like 5 years, we usually seal up the cracks and repaint it, which is much less expensive. Roof on the chapel, we're looking at 2039. The HVAC system in the RE wing. We had some major repairs done on that in 2018, so it should continue to function okay, but those ones are actually residential grade, and we should have a commercial grade. It just is a little more repair to keep those going than a commercial would be, but it's far more expensive to convert them over. So for now, we're just going to keep maintaining them. And the HVAC system in the chapel, 2029. Again, these things can last longer. We maintain them very well, so they may extend beyond these dates. Sorry about that. These are the ongoing ones. We have the parking lot crack and fill and painting, which I just spoke about. The flat roof maintenance plan here. We get that done about every 5 years. We just had that done in 2019, so we'll keep an eye on it. It's coming up in a couple more years, I think, here. And some of the recently completed items that we've done, we had the carpet and flooring replaced in the RE wing in 2018. We have that cleaned. We can have that cleaned once a year or every couple years. I just had it done in 2020. I don't think it had been done for a very long time, but it's not that expensive. It was only $250 to get all the carpets cleaned. So we'll probably try to do that more frequently. The fire alarm panel was a huge one. That one was just under $11,000. So that'll be good for probably 20 years or longer. And the hardwood floors, we just had those done as well in 2021. So those should be good for a good long time. I'm going to go down to the next page here. This page talks about our repair and replacement reserve. This is our reserve fund that we have. And I just came in here and I added what our year endings, how much we used of the fund in each year, what we used it for, and the year-end amount in the reserve. So you can kind of see we were using a bit and had some really small numbers in 2017 and 2018. 2019, I think we committed to adding more to it, and it's been building over the last few years. So this is a fund we do use. You can see it goes up, it goes down, we add to it, but we use it. But we're going to try to continually keep it on the building side and just keep building that up and up and up as we need. Some years we get hit with something really big, and some years we have something really small. We really use it for unexpected, more expensive kind of repairs and replacement needs. When Heather and Graham were here, they kind of got a little more creative with this fund. And I kind of live by the mentality of using it for its specific purpose and not using it as a balancing fund for other things in the budget, and just keep it for repair and replacement. And I think that's how we maintain building it up and not ending up with those smaller numbers. So that's the track that we're on, and we'll continue to grow it and use it as necessary. But just so everyone on the board knows how these processes work and know how this fund works and knows how we're keeping an eye on these projects. This is definitely something that's a huge part of my job and the operations team. These are things that we work on continually to make sure that our building and our grounds are maintained and working properly. So, and we try to do it, with fiscal responsibility in mind, and working within our budget and working within our means, and, projecting for the future and planning and preparing as much as we can. So any questions?
So I have one. First off, thank you very much. This is most informative in a useful way. And it's nice to see that you have this sort of like both retrospective and prospective plan laid out. My question, I probably should know the answer to this, but is it the case that when each year at our annual meeting in June, we discuss and adopt a budget, is there a line item that is identified and adopted as an amount that goes into this repair and replacement fund at that time, or are there other sources that feed into this?
Thank you for that question, Dick. So we've had the ambition for many years, according to all of our historical documents, to prepare and set money aside for this fund. I believe the past ambition has been like $10,000 a year is what we hope to put into this. I don't know how that was necessarily handled in the past, but I can tell you, since I've been here, we try with our best aspirations to fund that in the budget ahead of time. But what's been happening is that we have been in a bit of a financial crisis along with the pandemic, where we've had to be operating on a very bare bones budget. We just don't have a lot of excess that we can plan for. We're basing our budget on pledges and what our pledge drive is. So we take our operating costs and we know what we need to cover. It's our best guess, it's our best projection on how the year is going to play out and how much we hope to receive in pledges and non-pledge donations and other fundraising. but it's all kind of a guess, you know, it's a pretty good guess, and we try to be conservative with it. But when we go to balance that budget and present a balanced budget at the annual meeting, we sometimes have to cut things out. And that is a big ticket item that we tend to cut out first. And the reason why we have done that the past few years is because of our bare bones budget, we're a little bit stricter with our spending. So we've been lucky at the end of the year that we've ended up with a surplus. Basically, we've ended up in the green. So we've profited more than we've expensed. So what we've been doing with the direction of the board is to use whatever we have left over at the end of the year, because we have to balance our books at the end of the year. So we've been taking that and we've been just putting whatever's left over into this fund. Like, it's our top priority. That is what gets funded first. So at least 10,000, we've put 12 and 15 the last 2 years. Those are approximates with that extra money at the end of the year. So we've kind of been funding it on the back end, but that is our aspiration, is to fund it at some point. And when we end up with a more robust pledge campaign, and it looks like we will have more money to budget with, I think that would be a priority, that we would budget for that on the front end versus the back end. But at this point, it's kind of at the back end.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I hope that made sense.
Yes, I thank you, Rebecca. I just want to say that it makes me feel much more relaxed about the building and projects that are coming up and how money is being used in order. Having seen this looks really nicely thought out. So thank you.
You're welcome. I have one other thing just to mention for Richard and for Catherine on that point. We do have this reserve fund, but we also have, just this last year, we set up what we call a budgetary shortfall reserve. So we do have a good amount of money in that fund as well. And that is, of course, if we were to not come out in the positive at the end of the year, we do have that. We try to budget smartly, so we never would have that happen, but it's good to have just in case. And it helps us to have a balanced budget if we need to help balance our budget. That makes sense. But we also have those funds available if we were to have something really detrimental happen that this 45,000 wouldn't cover. If we had something, come up that was like 80,000, we could also pull from that, because technically that would be a budgetary shortfall. So we have a couple of places where we have a couple of safety nets.
How much is the budgetary shortfall amount?
I think it's 28,000. I'll have to look what we budgeted for it. I'll have to pull that up and look.
Okay.
Wait, what we budgeted, Rebecca, or what's in the balance sheet under a budget reserve category?
Right. The budgeted amount is 25,737, but the actual amount I think is on my balance sheet. It's significantly higher, actually.
Like close to 80, 79,750, if I'm looking at the right number.
It is. Yep, we have $79,750. So we have a couple of good safety nets if anything were to happen.
Could you explain those two numbers again? I got lost there.
Okay, the two budgetary shortfall numbers, or the
first one you mentioned was 25,000.
right. So that's the amount that we put into our budget this year to help balance our budget with.
So that was money going in or money we set
So
aside?
that's money from this fund that's specifically earmarked to help balance this year's budget. But the actual amount that's in the fund is close to 80,000.
So where did the 25,000 come from to help meet the budget shortfall?
It comes from that fund. It's a holding account. It comes from that holding account to help balance the budget. So that's money that's available to help us balance the shortfall of the budget.
So for the 22-23 fiscal year, we used 25,000 of that fund, and there's 87,000 remaining.
If we need it, yes, there's
80.
there's 79,000
79,
in that fund. If you want to think of it this way, Darrell, we have our endowment fund that our endowment fund contributes money as income to the church every
Right.
year to help with our budget. So you can kind of think of this reserve, the budgetary reserve fund, the same way. But there's a little more of it. There's a little more money in that fund that's kind of liquid and available to us if we needed to do a dramatic repair to something that our insurance didn't cover.
So over the years, where did the money come from to make up that 79,000?
Most of that is from the PPP loan.
Most is from the PPE.
Mhm.
So we haven't spent that yet?
Yes, we have, and no, we haven't.
Okay,
It's all kind of the same pool of money. So you can't really think of it as separate from any other income that we've received. It's just, it was from the last 3 years of COVID where we applied for the PPP grant, loan
Right.
turned grant. And the fact that our operating expenses were so much lower because we were closed for so long. Our doors were closed, so our operating costs were much, much lower.
right.
So we had kind of built up. So that money is there.
Okay,
It's
so I've
still
got-
part of the giant pool, so I can't say, what I say is we have spent the PPP money, we have spent that. I legally have to say that that money has been used. It has. But it's all kind of part of the same pool, right? So whatever income we had come in that wasn't used was technically like a profit to the church. So we put that money into what we considered, it used to be called a contingency fund, but we just decided to rename it and call it the budgetary shortfall reserve.
Budgetary shortfall reserve. So you said that we have spent the PPE money or PPP money
Yes,
as we're legally obligated to do, right?
correct.
Okay, so that allowed us to not spend other money that came in, and that's then
Correct.
gone into this reserve fund. So,
Exactly.
right. So prior to COVID,
Mhm.
what was the balance in this contingency fund or reserve fund?
It was again, it was one of those funds that was kind of used as a balancing account. So it didn't really, I would say it really didn't have anything. At one point a few years ago, it had like $8,000 in it I could find, and then it went down to like 300, and then it went to 0 for several years. And we just kind of brought that back to life. So there was no money in it at all when I came into this position.
Right.
So we just ramped that up over the last 2020, 2021, and 2022.
So it seems like the only reason we have the 79,000 in there now is because of COVID. Is that right?
Yep, I would say that's accurate.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's an anomaly that we aren't going to
It
see
is.
going forward.
Maybe not. Yes.
Well, hopefully.
I would
we
say
don't-
it is an anomaly, but we can hopefully wish that, things get better and better, and we can continue to build that or have that in place.
Right.
Because we are technically supposed to have a contingency fund.
Right. But the current money in there essentially is because of COVID
It is a gift from the pandemic. Yes.
from one reason or another. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Rebecca.
You're welcome.
And looks like time for Betsy's treasurer report.
This will just be a kind of a verbal. It's really actually quite excellent that I would follow Rebecca. Well, and bad, because who wants to follow Rebecca? But it's along the same lines, the same sort of report. I'm not going to share any screen kind of thing, but Rebecca and Donna Borden Rhodes and I met this afternoon. We're about a week late from what we would normally do for our quarterly finance team meeting. This was a finance team meeting, and I attended as the treasurer and, I guess, liaison in a way to the finance team, similarly to how Candace does it with the ops team. So the three of us, and there's typically, there's another person on the finance team. Who's that, Rebecca?
That is Bill Morkel.
Bill Morkel was unable to attend today. So it was just the three of us, and we went through more detail of more or less what Rebecca was focusing tonight for us on the reserve fund or the repair fund. And we looked across all of the finances in a quarterly due diligent kind of way. Donna had great questions, and we looked through the P&L, profit and loss, for the first quarter. We're early in the church fiscal year. We've just completed a quarter. And so we're looking at trends to see how we're doing. Always good to look at trends. And for the most part, again, early days, but we're tracking as we would expect, with about a quarter of our budget spent at the end of the first quarter. So that was good. We dug into a few questions about this and that, and learned some more about those things Rebecca just talked about with Heather and Graham's creative ways of some, actually pretty clever creative ways of balancing the budget and meeting our contracts. If you have any questions, I can explain some of those clever things. But the other big thing we talked about was an expense that the church has, that our administration has in paying our bills. And we talked about a different way to do it, which is to use electronic funds transfer. Probably a lot of you guys do that with, bill pay. Lily is nodding, yeah, on our in our bank accounts. You push the money out to your vendors instead of writing checks, because it's getting to be an expensive way to transfer our money and pay our vendors, just for a variety of reasons. So we talked about how to do that, and Rebecca's investigated doing it with SDCU. Looks positive, so that's where we're going with that. Real reduced postage and printing checks and avoid misdirected checks, and the checks that don't make it to their intended parties, and all kinds of stuff. So it's just pretty simple, good way to go. So that was it. Any questions?
Yes. How much were we spending on those things that can be improved now by doing electronic transfer?
Postage and bounce checks and stuff. I don't know, Rebecca, you came up with a number, but I don't know that we have it at hand. It's not huge, Catherine.
Like $100 or?
Yeah, somewhere in the range of 100 to 500 would be my guess.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say just we typically in the past have had like a few checks go missing in the mail. It's just been like maybe one or two a year, but I'd say in the last, like just this year, we've had probably 8 go missing. And so I don't know if it's our postal service or businesses move or things just get lost, but it costs us like $25 per check to cancel them.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's a hassle. It's extra, things to do. And then we have to deal with late fees and contacting the vendors and saying, oh, we sent this on this date. And they go, oh, we never received it. So, and they always say, why don't you just pay through auto bill pay or EFT? And we're kind of in the dark ages with that still. So, so we're just looking at doing that. And, postage isn't huge, but we got rid of our postage machine last year because it was costing us like $40 a month, and it's not worth it. We don't send out big mailers anymore. So yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Betsy.
Sure, my pleasure. Any other questions or?
So just I'm thinking probably a lot of the payments are regularly recurring payments to the same recipient, and that can be set up just automatically that funds are available on the first and they withdraw them or whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like the power bill, exactly. Yep. I assume you'll do that, Rebecca. She's investigating, just kind of early days on that, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, this would really only be for our regular vendors, the ones that we're paying monthly for. The ones that come in periodically, we wouldn't do that probably. We'd probably still send checks for those, but the monthly ones that are regular in every, yeah, we would just do it for those.
So would it be possible to use to get a credit card and use a credit card for those non-regular?
We do have that, but typically there's an extra fee that you have to pay when you pay with a credit card because
Right.
they'll tack on like 3% or whatever. Where with EFT, it doesn't cost anything extra
Right, okay,
and it's instant. And there's no risk of like maxing out our credit cards. Not that our bills are ever that high, but you know, you never know what we might use a credit card for. Like we just used it to purchase that play equipment. So you know, if we're putting like all our other bills on, that might max out someone's card, which I mean, we pay it off every month, so it doesn't really matter, but why would we take that
Right.
risk?
right. So I wasn't suggesting using a credit card in place of the electronic funds transfer, but for those things that are random, that aren't
Oh,
regular
sure.
bills. So,
Yeah,
so just to
yeah.
get away from checks altogether.
Yeah, we could. We do have a huge pile of checks though that we've already paid for, so we should probably.
Okay,
Use
Maybe
them.
when we run out, we'll make that choice.
okay.
That's a good suggestion. Thank you, Darrell.
Okay, so the operations team report with Candace.
Okay, I hope you all can hear me.
Mhm.
My internet connection is a little unstable. Okay.
There was a little in and out there, but we'll
Yeah.
see how it goes.
Shoot. Oh, okay. Well, the community auction with this year, all donated items were put on the wall, but people wishing to buy or bid will need to go to the church's website to do so. Could you hear most of that?
Most, but there were some words missing.
But we probably glued it together. Carry on, Candace.
Yeah.
Shoot. Well, proposed. The ops team reached a consensus that a new building and grounds team was not needed, as the ops team already has the responsibility of taking care of the tasks listed in the proposal. The team is raising funds for the replacement of the chapel flooring and has listed it as an item in the community auction this year. Currently, there is about $200, not quite $200 in the fund. One bid for the project came in as $5,000. The children's playground has been installed and was used by the children this Sunday. Special thanks go to Lynn and Robert Janishian for the structure over a period of several weeks. Thank you, Lynn and Robert. The membership team is collaborating with the minister to plan an upcoming Path to Membership orientation class this fall. Maybe if I get closer to the computer, will that help? Okay. And membership is expanding to individuals around the country and in Canada so as to provide a congregation for UUs leaving their local churches due to disagreement with the direction of the UUA. So,
Happy to
I
hear
have,
about
I
that.
have one small correction, just one tiny one. The chapel flooring fund is actually 2,000, not 200. So we're getting closer to that.
Oh,
oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I wrote that wrong in my notes. Okay.
You just missed 1 0.
Yeah, that's, thank you. That's more encouraging.
Yes, much more.
Okay.
Candace, could you give us some background on item number 2, the building and grounds team?
I'm sorry, you were cutting out. I didn't hear it
Right.
all.
Could you give us some background on item number 2, the proposed reorganization of the building and grounds team?
Well, actually, I'll turn it over to Rebecca because she has more of the details than I do. If that's okay, Rebecca.
Yes, I'm just gonna pull up my notes really quick. So a proposal was brought to us for a new buildings and grounds team. And the proposed new team would assure the church building and grounds are maintained and developed and would keep track of long-term maintenance projects and bring them to the attention of the operations team and the board. So we basically kind of what we just talked about, the operations team's decision was to not approve that team because those tasks are really already the responsibilities that are taken care of by me, the operations manager, the operations team, and in conjunction with the existing buildings and grounds team. I talk with Julie, Jose every month prior to, and we discuss projects and things that they're going to work on for the work party. And if they see anything while they're out working, they let us know, they let me know, so I can let the operations team know, or, you know, if it's just things that we can take care of. So it was we just felt it was redundant and wasn't necessary. So we let them know we would not approve that team, but we were going to work to basically put together a new charge for the existing buildings and grounds team. We would write something up just based on the list of tasks and things that Julie and myself have put together over the last several years. And so there's just clarification for that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So I have a question regarding item number 5. The membership team is collaborating with the minister to plan an upcoming path to membership orientation class this fall. Is that going to be held like in person exclusively or virtually exclusively, or a mix of virtual and in person?
I don't have any details.
Can
If
answer
Todd
that.
is here, obviously, he can answer, but I don't have any details.
I can answer that. It is going to be a hybrid. They're going to have it via Zoom, via stream, and in person, all coming from the sanctuary. So everyone will be present in the sanctuary, along with our other platforms that we use. So
Using Todd's really wonderful new age 3D surround video machine.
that would be amazing. 360. They can have a really immersive experience. No, but it will be a hybrid so that we can have our in-person people at the same time as any distance people who are interested.
Good.
Good,
Very good.
thank you.
Okay, so I have a question about, since we're asking about practically everything on this list. Number 6, membership is expanding to individuals around the country, providing congregation for use, leaving your local churches. That seems like kind of a statement. Is there any, what's the evidence, I guess, or what's the numbers?
I would say it's a demand. We've had a high demand of people asking if they can join our church from other churches, or people who are leaving other churches, people who are still members of their churches, but they really like, the message that's being said through our church and our congregation. We've had people who have left their congregations because they no longer feel that it's something they can relate to, and they're relating to our message. So these are a lot of the people who are watching our stream every Sunday. They're people who have been sending us extremely generous donations. I think this year we've already received 2 $1,000 checks from one guy in New Mexico and another person in New England. So, and both of those people expressed a desire to join our church as well. So we're having an increased demand. I think over the last couple of years, we've had 6 new members who are distance members from around the country and up in Canada. And we were just recently able to expand our donation, our online website, or our online donation platform to allow payments from around the world, so we can receive donations from people all around the world, including Canada. So
Nice.
yeah. I hope that answers, Betsy.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good thing. I was just kind of curious about, well, we'll just see how it goes.
I think that the intention is just that Todd felt that we should maybe open our doors and advertise that a little bit, that we, or at least, have that on our website, that we are open to membership, because people are like, hey, can I join your church when I'm
Right.
1,000 miles away? Is that a possibility? And we just want to put it out there that yes, our doors are open. All are welcome here, whether you're sitting in our chairs or whether you're sitting 1,000 miles away watching us online. You can still be part of this church.
Perfect. Thank you.
And I see a real possibility in doing that that a lot of these new members will then be participating on various teams with us,
Yeah.
maybe even the board of trustees by Zoom.
Yeah, we already have 2 of our distance members are on current teams. So
Great.
And participating weekly and facilitating our Zoom room. That's our member from Canada who does that. So
Wow.
pretty awesome. Yes. Did you have a question about that, Tom?
Well, it isn't a specific question, but my antenna went up a little bit when we talked about $1,000 donations, and I'm looking at the section of the bylaws, section 7, Article 03 of the finance, and is that coming into play? Undesignated donations of $1,000 or less shall go toward the operating fund, and other in excess shall be retained for scrutiny as to the donor intent. Is that working, or do we need to consider a change in the bylaws for this kind of new situation that we didn't anticipate when we went through bylaw preparation last time?
I think it's working. They both had notated on those payments that they were for our general fund.
Okay.
So because they had put the notation, that was easy.
Yeah.
We haven't come up with one that was larger where we weren't sure where to apply that, but it definitely goes towards, what we budget for unpledged donations. And then I believe one of those had become a pledge because they had joined and asked if they could make that a pledge and send a check. So, yeah.
Yeah, and the other part of that one sub C is if they're in excess of 1,000 shall be retained for scrutiny. In the event the donor or the intent can't be determined, then it would go to the endowment fund. So
Right.
I assume when you are be able to contact anybody who's made a sizable donation like that and determine intent.
Yes.
Okay, good. Then
We
I think
typically
section
could.
works.
Yeah, I think it works right now, but we may want to keep an eye on that in the future if, it couldn't be determined. But
Thank you.
Shall we proceed to the NAUA introduction with Candace then?
Sure. Let me know if you can't hear everything, and I think Lynn can take over if I'm not coming through very well. But anyway, several weeks ago, a group of UUs met over Zoom with Todd to discuss setting up a support organization for those UUs who wish to be supported in traditional UU values. It is not to be an alternative to the UUA, but is to be an organization within the larger denomination. And several subgroups were formed. One to begin developing a website. One person is looking into the tax exempt status and what we would need for that. And then there's a subgroup that's developing an initial charter and provisional bylaws.
From your understanding, is it something individuals would join or congregations?
Both.
Join?
Congregations will be able to join if you know, they vote to do so, I suppose, and then individuals can also be members. And this is to be for North America, so include United States and Canada. You know, I don't know if we have anybody down in Mexico that would want to join, but yeah. And then the NAUA, the North American Unitarian Association, is a working title that it may change.
Candace, did you say this was going to be within the UUA?
Yes.
And so is this group asking permission from the UUA to form? Or how does that work?
I don't, that's not come up. I don't think anyone's asking permission.
Huh. That's interesting because what I recall of the UUA bylaws, of course, they're changing almost weekly. But the last thing was an affiliate organization. This sounds kind of like what you just implied, that this might be an affiliate organization, which would have to be approved by them. And then the question that comes to my mind, which I'm sure someone will find out, if it's outside of the UUA and they don't like the use of someone using the name Unitarian, if they have proprietary interest of that, then you know that could be a conflict there. But all that'll sort itself out. But it's going to be interesting.
It will be interesting. Yeah, I think several different names were floated out there, you know. But you know, well, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that was with that concern in mind, right? That the UUA would try to put a stop to something, particularly if it said Unitarian Universalist, for sure. And I also was not of the understanding, and Candace, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I was not of the understanding that this was within the UUA at all. That not that it would replace the UUA, but
well, maybe I shouldn't use those words. Were misleading. Yeah, but it's not to replace the UUA.
No, like you could be a member of both.
Yes,
but it is something, I don't even know what to call it yet, like an organization.
It's not under, it would not be under the umbrella of the UUA.
No.
Right, okay,
No,
that makes more sense.
Yeah, no, the UUA would likely not be very happy or certainly be supportive or approving of it, but it's not intended to replace, it's just intended to give people an option. Because the UUA is the only game in town right now, obviously.
It's an alternative, maybe.
Yeah.
Right?
right.
I can't imagine that the UUA has authority over the use of the term Unitarian. That just sounds kind of nuts.
Yeah, it's kind of like saying I'm Christian, practically.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't.
Yeah.
The lawyers will sort that one out.
Yeah,
well, I am aware of a church that formed. Gosh, it's somewhere in the South. I don't know whether it's in Texas. I can't quite remember.
Yeah.
But they had a name, and it had Unitarian Universalists. And they broke away because they didn't like the direction of where the UUA is going, and the UUA sent them a letter, a cease and desist, not to use the Unitarian Universalist name. And I don't know if they would do the same thing for just a Unitarian or not. No one knows really.
Yeah. So, I mean, from a historical organizational point of view, there's no requirement for a Unitarian church to join the UUA. There never has been. The UUA was founded in 1961, and at the beginning, congregations that wanted to associate with the UUA were given the option of voting to join or voting to decide later. And there were many churches that, spent 10, 15, 20 years before, deciding that they would affiliate with the UUA. And there are those that have never joined, and there's no way of forcing them to join. So the UUA, and I recall the one that you were talking about, Candace. I think that's the seventh fellowship, seven principal fellowship in Austin, Texas. If my
That's
memory,
it.
memory serves me right. And it broke off from the Yellow Rose or Wild Rose.
Wildflower or something.
Congregation in Austin, Texas. And the UUA wrote, and the letter said they couldn't use the terms UUA because that's copyrighted by the UUA. And they couldn't use the logo of the chalice, but that doesn't mean you couldn't use a picture of a chalice, which is not the logo. They don't own chalices or intellectual property protection on chalices in general. They own the intellectual property protection on their logo, which is, includes a chalice. So, from a administrative point of view, a group like this that formed would be akin to a Unitarian church that just never, since 1961, ever came around to deciding that they wanted to affiliate with the UUA. And they do exist. Those do exist.
That's an interesting perspective. Yeah.
So those churches that do exist, they're Unitarian Universalist or just Unitarian?
They remain Unitarian.
Okay.
Right. Or Universalist. I mean, I presume that there are Universalist churches that did the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the association was the combination of the Unitarians and the Universalists.
Well, Unitarian is a noun, so you can certainly use it with a small u.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and it antedates the UUA and the Unitarian Universalist brand.
I know I have heard Todd say that there's a real need for something like this because churches who maybe their minister is resigning, and in the next year or two or whenever, and they're kind of up a creek finding a minister that maybe that adheres to our traditional Unitarian values.
Yeah.
And so this organization hopefully will be able to support those ministers who, have not gone along with the changes in the UUA. And
Or
so that
get banished, blacklisted.
right.
Sorry,
Tom?
Betsy, please. Oh,
Yeah, kind of along that same line, Mary and I, and Million Day Roberts for that matter, have good friends a long time at the Port Townsend UU Church. And I got an inquiry from Jack Salmon, that's a part of the Breakaway group. And he asked me if I knew what was, whether they could call a minister that wasn't approved by UUA. So this is a group that, I guess, 50 or 60 people that out of a congregation, former congregation of about 500,000 or let's say
500.
500 plus, that's apparently that serious about something. So you're right. This group might be very helpful in finding,
Mhm.
helping people like that find a minister that would be suitable for their point of view.
Yep.
Mhm. Yeah, and offer support to those ministers. Yeah.
Betsy, were you trying to say something earlier and got cut off? Okay, I thought you were.
Thank you. No, I'm good.
Okay. Shall we go on to the Policy and Procedure Subcommittee update with Tom and Lynn?
Okay, guys. Tom and I are meeting. We did change our meeting day from our regular Monday evenings to Thursday afternoons seems to be the most consistent time. Looking ahead at our calendars where we would be able to be consistent to meet with each other. So we meet on Thursdays now at 1 p.m. Although I will say that Tom is a little addicted to the January 6th commission hearings and he had to bow out on that day. So just teasing Tom. So our approach has been to start by looking at our bylaws and highlighting our current approved bylaws anywhere where it says policies and procedures manual, to look whatever the bylaw says, refer further for further information in the policies and procedures manual. So that's where we have started, is just highlighting those. And we have been through Articles 1 and 2 so far and learned a couple of things already, that in several, in the places so far in Article 1 and Article 2, where it says in the bylaws to refer to the policies and procedures manuals, that there's nothing in the policy and procedures manual related to the bylaws as they are currently written and approved. So we will be coming eventually. We're going to just keep working our way through all of this. And we will be coming to the board with more regular recommendations. Likely, the changes that we will want to be proposing will be more related to bylaw changes, just striking any bylaw that says to refer to the policy and procedures manual where that's completely unnecessary because there's nothing in there, rather than going to the policies and procedures manual and making a policy, which would be making a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. So our approach is hopefully we both agree that fewer policies is better. And policies should be made certainly when we need one. But our bylaw revision and our bylaw work that we did over the past couple of years really clarified a lot of things. So that, I think, as we continue to move through our current bylaws, is what we are more than likely to find. We also found right off the bat that our policy and procedures manual is what it's referred to in our bylaws, is actually called a policy governance document. So for consistency, one of our recommendations will likely be to change the name of the policy governance document to policies and procedures to be consistent with the wording in the bylaws. And the glossary of terms in our bylaws also says policies and procedures. They're just two different names for the same policies that we are operating under. So we will be moving forward to Article 3 tomorrow. We've already started a little bit on that because there is one interesting bylaw in there in Article 3, Section 8 says that the board has responsibility, or the board has the authority to refuse a gift or a donation. It doesn't say that the board has any authority to accept a donation, or it doesn't, and it also does not say under what circumstances the board would refuse a donation. And so we don't have to get into this too far tonight, but our goal is likely to discuss a little bit more in depth tomorrow, whether we should get rid of that particular bylaw section or develop a policy that says under these circumstances, or a set of questions, if you will. And I have taken a little stab at that already, just to kind of think about, okay, is it something that a team wants? Is it something that a team or that we have the staff or the volunteers or the manpower to maintain? Is it costly? Does it reflect our Unitarian values? On and on and on. So rather than having a gift or a donation being given to the church and having subjective ideas about who thinks what about a particular donation, that the board would have clarified questions to answer, to say, under these circumstances, we would refuse a gift. So that's to be continued. We'll come to you with a very clear recommendation of what we would think would be the best course of action there.
Yeah.
The other,
Okay, wouldn't, I have some comments to add at the end when you're through. I didn't know whether you're through or not.
okay, well, there is one important thing I think that's actually even more important than Section 8 of Article 3 right now, but that is that in March of 2021, those of us who were on the board at that time, we actually did write a policy and approve a policy that never made it into the policy and procedures manual. And so I found it in the minutes that Dorothy had carefully written, beautifully written. And I'm not sure what happened, but I do know that it was very timely because it was coming up in March of that year, when some people who had left our church and wanted to be reinstated to be able to vote at our annual meeting in 2021. Well, we wrote a policy about that, and we had 2 readings of that policy, and that is clarified in the minutes of March 2021, but it never made it into the policies and procedures manual. So that is something we likely should, I don't even know if we need to vote. That would be maybe some parliamentary advice we could use tonight, but that policy does need to be added to our current policy governance document, even though that whole document is sort of outdated. So I'm not really sure how to proceed about that, but I can read to you what we approved in March of 2021, if that would be helpful.
Sure.
Okay. So those minutes, say a policy governance clause on returning members. Craig Aldworth presented the second reading of a proposed amendment to the policy governance document. A member or friend who has formally withdrawn from the church may rejoin at any time by notifying the administrator or minister in writing of their intent to rejoin and rescind their withdrawal. A rejoining member or friend need not attend an orientation class. Once the rejoining member or friend pays their annual financial obligation, they will become a member or friend in good standing. The member must be reinstated at least 90 days prior to a congregational meeting in order to vote in that meeting. And then it says, with no objections, the article was adopted.
Yes, I remember that now.
Yeah, me too.
Well, from a parliamentary standpoint, that's a no-brainer. It was adopted. That was a question I was going to ask. Was it just a second reading with no action, or was there in the minutes, did it say there was action to accept?
Says there was no objection.
Okay, so the president should have proclaimed it, then approved. And whether that made it into the minutes, that's certainly the intent to say, are there any objections? And the intent was, if not in the minutes, was that the chairperson would acknowledge that as having been approved.
Yeah, it doesn't have names at the time. It was Dick, who was our president, but it does say the article with no objections, the article was adopted.
That's it. It's clear.
Okay, so does that just get sent to Rebecca?
In my opinion, it's something that it was simply an administrative overlook, and it needs to be put into that policy governance document, even though that document is in the state of being, reviewed and revised.
It's like the one thing that we have in our policy document at this point, it sounds like.
It's
Well-
the one thing that this board,
Yes,
yeah, has actually written a policy for, yeah.
Well, you did one other one. There was one other one. that
Yes,
was-
we did.
that was-
Yeah, we did.
That was put in there too. And that document is still there. It's just so convoluted since there's bylaws that that in some cases overrule it, and in other cases, there's so much in that policy governance document that may or may not be relevant. And I guess that's where I was going to go, Lynn, was to say that as an example, in those first two articles, we found several references to further information will be in the policy and procedures. Well, what we found, and just for clarification, is that there was enough written in the bylaws that we couldn't come up with any scenario, Lynn and I, that needed any more clarification that was already written in the bylaws. So we're just going to recommend that next annual meeting that we strike, refer to the policy and procedures. And that may happen over and over again. On the other hand, as Lynn pointed out, there's one about maybe needing some criteria for when to refuse a donation. You don't need that kind of detail in a bylaws. It's a perfect place to have it in your policy manual, because then you could modify it as circumstances may come up
Yeah.
that aren't addressed by your policies, and you can tweak your policies.
Right.
You can do that any meeting of your 11 meetings a year, or however many there are. So, and the other thing I think that Lynn and I are going to do after we go through all the bylaws is to go look at the policy governance document and find out what in there is not really needed anymore, even though it really isn't addressed in the bylaws. There's a lot of superfluous information in there. My goodness gracious, there's, I think, 3.5 pages about the operations team alone, whether they
Still
need
called the
that.
management team.
Yeah, of course, it's called the management team.
Yeah, get it out of
We'll
there.
change all that. But
Yeah.
So we're just going to, it'll be a kind of an exercise in exploration, and we'll keep working at it and periodically making reports to you.
Yeah, for the record, the other policy that we adopted regarded how executive committees, executive sessions are
Executive
handled.
session.
So we should check to make sure that both of those are in this document that we're going to revise anyway.
Well, that one is in there.
Oh, okay.
Interestingly enough, unlike all the other, one of the things about your policy document is there's notations about when each section was revised, some of them going back to 2004 or 2005. But that particular one you mentioned, Dick, doesn't have that it was revised in
Interesting.
2021. So that would be another thing that needs to kind of be cleaned up. And I think that should be cleaned up so that the document that we're working with has that little correction, and then has the addition of the one that you all just discussed.
Yeah. Right.
So back to Lynn's question a few minutes ago, send it up to Rebecca. Who owns that document and keeps it up to date? Does anybody know?
Rebecca, I'm pretty
Rebecca.
sure, I mean, she does that with the bylaws, right? When we when we, if we redo a bylaw or at an annual meeting, that goes to Rebecca and she makes sure that gets updated.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
then, yeah, then send it to her. I don't think we need a motion or anything because we already did all that. It's just like Tom pointed out, a little
Just a-
oversight that it's not in there.
Yeah, just somebody pointing out to her to add a revised date on the one about executive sessions and to add the one with the revised date for the one for reinstating a resigned member.
okay,
And she maintains the official copy. And if she would put it on the website, then the website would be up to date once she tweaks that document, and it's there until we modify it, till the board, changes it, modifies it, which might take weeks, if not 3 or 4 or 5 months out from now.
Thursdays, 1 p.m. Okay, I think that's it for right now. Tom, is anything else from you?
Nope.
Okay, see you tomorrow.
Okay, good work, you guys. How about let's begin the discussion of the board's budget priorities. Anybody have some ideas they'd like to put out?
I have a suggestion, which is that it might be useful, sort of like for her historical perspective, to unearth the discussions from the past couple of years and just see where we were directing our attention. We may decide that something has been overlooked. We may decide that something has been adequately addressed and so on. So but that's just a suggestion. But if that could be dug up and circulated, I think I could probably do that actually. Just send a copy, an email copy for people's reference. Yeah.
That sounds really good. Was our I think our major priority for a while was rewriting the bylaws. And I'm trying to even remember what else was the priority.
Well, that was our that was not a budget priority though. That was that's what we're a task priority, if you will. But what this discussion needs to be is a beginning of our budget priorities, because the budget cycle will begin in December. And Rebecca will contact you, Catherine, and say, I need to know what the board priorities are. So this is that stuff that we voted on. I know last year it came, the building maintenance was a big deal. There were some things about social events, if I'm correct.
That's what I remember. Yeah.
Yeah,
And some social or some church outreach was something, or advertising. I don't know that we actually ever addressed many of those things. We were so focused on bylaws last year. But those were the things that we each prioritized, because I remember asking you each to send me an email of your priority list, and then I had to do math stuff.
I remember that too, yes.
I had to make a table or something.
Right.
But I know that Dick did that too when Dick was president, and the math was probably much easier for him.
Well, I can certainly dig out the ones from that I was overseeing, and I'll send those to everybody. Not that that's supposed to be what we do again, but it both gives a suggestion for, because a lot of this was actually handled and also during your year last year when by email, and that worked pretty well, I thought. I mean, it was a combination of discussions during our board meeting and live. Like this, but then also people giving thought to it and exchanging emails, as I recall.
Yeah, that was very useful to have everybody's sent to me, and just to be able to kind of categorize things into headings. And then it was really easy to see, all right, 4 people think this is the most important thing. So, but I do want to say, I don't know how many of you were at I know Candace was there at the potluck on Sunday, the fall dessert potluck. And I had at least 3 people that I don't know really well come to me. And I really, it wasn't a board sponsored event by any stretch, but people did come to say how much they enjoyed that and how they just really want events like that. They just want community. So I don't know, Candace, did anybody approach you?
Yes, I had about 3 people approach me as well. Yeah, it might have been the same 3. I don't know.
Maybe, or maybe that's 6 people, guys.
Yes, yes. Well, and we do have $600, in the budget for social events. So
So maybe that could be a bigger priority. We could ask for more. I mean, to have that as just an option for people to, maybe we could encourage a social committee, or I don't know, a team that loves all of that kind of stuff. But we definitely want to fund community. I think, coming out of COVID, it was so lacking.
Good.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I also think it makes a lot of sense for us to have a chance to see something in email that we can reflect upon in order to really come up with what we'd like to put as a priority. I think it is kind of hard to, off the top of your head, say what a budget priority is without sort of reflecting on the choices.
Yeah, I can think of one more though.
Okay, good.
And that is technology. Whatever we could do to improve or support our technology as technology is advancing, and that is going to be a way that we are going to be connecting with more and more people, I think, as our church grows with distance members.
What kind of technology are you imagining?
Well, I don't know, because I hate technology, but I'm just saying supporting whatever technology needs we have to, if we need, I don't know, better live streaming or better Zoom capabilities or better camera capability, I don't know, whatever that means to bring distance people or home people.
I bet
into
Todd
our
would be a good resource on this one.
Yeah.
Well, actually, there's an item in that we went over today. There's already a fund and Rebecca spoke about a microphone near the choir that would improve the streaming experience, I guess. The choir sounds good to us in the sanctuary, but it doesn't apparently come across using the microphone that we have so well for streaming. So that would be an example, Lynn, of technology to support our expansion, I guess, or our outreach.
Our outreach, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Lydia.
So we, go ahead.
This is sort of related to the community talk we were having, and then also I heard somebody mention like advertising. I'm going to be an OWL teacher when we decide and have enough youth to teach an OWL class. I'm certified to be the older. I'm a teacher. I like the older kids. I'm curious for outreach, if we're talking about budgeting, because we've been talking about it with OWL kind of meetings, is how to reach out to kids, because I feel like we're lacking in the teens, and we've got a couple littles, but we're really lacking in teens. And I remember when I started attending, there were a lot of teens, and I really want to be more involved in like RE and, like I said, OWL. And we've been talking about in OWL meetings like Instagram, and I offered to put I'm a younger millennial or older millennial or whatever it is, but I still am lacking in all of that knowledge, but I'll lend whatever I have to that. But I think we should think about that for when we think about advertising budget, is directing some of that towards youth and directing that towards parents about youth involvement, because I miss that. I miss seeing teens getting involved and all the stuff they would learn in RE and stuff. So I don't know, but that's my thought and suggestion, is that we bring the kids back.
Yeah, it's a good one. And I'm thinking that we could reach out even farther than just parents who had teenage children, but to teenagers directly themselves. That we
Exactly.
could get a whole new crop of Unitarians going here.
That's what I'm thinking with, because we talked about like putting an ad in the newspaper, but I'm a teacher and I'm like, I don't know any of my students that have ever touched a newspaper, unless I put it in front of their face. So I think Instagram and not even Facebook. I think my students call me old when I talk about Facebook. I don't even know what's
TikTok.
hip.
We have to do TikTok, Lilia.
We should make a TikTok. We got to
I
get some
hate
kids
TikTok,
to run it.
but
'cause
okay.
we gotta get
Lilia
some
would be
kids.
great doing a TikTok for us. I would
God.
love to see you do a TikTok on
Yeah,
that.
do the TikTok dances. I'll do
Yeah,
that.
you
Yeah.
gotta dance.
No, but I wonder if we could get start talking about that moving forward, because I would like to be more involved in especially teenagers, because I understand their brains more. But in general, kiddos, I want to see that grow again. So that's my suggestion.
Nice.
Excellent one. Yeah, thank you.
Hmm.
In that same line, I remember when my kids, who are now 50-ish, were in the RE program and in the OWL programs. I taught in the OWL programs for junior high, that there were not only the children of our Unitarian or Unitarian Universalist parents, but they were their friends of those kids. So they brought in their friends, and whether they ever continue with Unitarian Universalism, who knows? But just the mere fact that they would get more of an education that they're not getting in other places, either from their parents or in school, somehow it needs to be a broader base. I love your idea, and it should some way to expand it to go beyond just the UU parents that are now part of our group.
Right. I think that too about we have only in our OWL conversations, which I think are a group. I think the small group of us facilitators are kind of a mix of from, I forget what the branch church is even called.
United
Plus,
Church of Christ.
well, not even that one, the one that split from us.
Oh,
Oh, I knew
INUC.
you.
I think because we have Phyllis. I don't know if y'all know Phyllis. She and I, and then I think Marianne. I'm bad at names, but Marianne is my co-facilitator, but we're trying to get more facilitators. We're working with Stephanie, the head of RE, but we only have one kid that's interested and I'm certified in the 7th through 9th grade. We only have one kid, and he's talked about, like Tom just said, bringing in friends, but like, none of us want to teach 3 kids. That just, the numbers are off,
Right,
and it's
sure.
not conducive for a learning environment for teens. They need their peers.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know if there are people who know more about social media than me, but I mean, I have a TikTok, but I don't make them. So
Right.
I don't know how to do that, but I want to get more into that and then grow our RE, what we offer in RE. I have friends who have little kids who really want to attend, but since COVID, we've kind of been irregular. So I've heard from my friends in childcare, and so it's making it hard for some of my peers with kiddos to come. So I think that would bring in more people to the in-person services and whatever. But anyways, I'm super passionate about that. So I want to, I don't know, do something helpful.
Lilia, does the teen that you're talking about in our church know social media?
The team, the OWL team?
No, the teen, the
Oh,
teenager.
the teen. I've never even met him.
Oh,
He's
you
been
haven't
talking
met
with Marianne. I don't know if he attends what is it again?
UUC.
No, the branch from us.
That is
INU.
into, I don't know, inland northwest.
So I can't
UUC.
remember.
Something, yeah.
INUUC.
Thank you,
INUUC.
Tom.
I'm not sure if he attends there. I think his name is Alex. I don't know his full name, but that's literally, so we've decided to postpone OWL until next year is what we've been, that was my push. And then we all agreed was we don't have the youth for it right now. So we're going to spend this year on outreach was our talk. And we're meeting on the 6th after church, Stephanie, Phyllis, Marianne, myself, and I think maybe another person, but we're going to focus on outreach, but I don't know if anybody else has tips on how to grow that
So-
outreach or funds for that stuff. I don't know how it works. I'm still new, so.
Yeah, could we hire a TikTok videographer?
Maybe we could
Because
get a teen who wants a part-time job. That would be the coolest.
Yes.
consuming that stuff is one thing.
Yeah.
Producing something quality on it is a whole other thing.
Oh, for sure. I'm with you there. But
Right. So I'm just curious if you're working with Phyllis and whoever from INUUC on outreach toward OWL for our joint OWL effort, right?
right.
Which is an excellent, super excellent way to pull in to grow our RE program, Lilia. That's how I got into the UU Church was through. I mean, I admired that OWL program. So kudos
It's
to you
great.
for. It is great.
Well, I
It's a
took
good
it
program.
from my mama who taught it, and now I'm
Aw.
teaching it. We've come full circle. So,
I guess so.
but I don't know if this is the right time to ask this question because it's related. And like I said, I'm new, so I don't know how things work. For this NAUA, I don't know how, because I know OWL has really strict guidelines on you have to be a member of UUA or UCC to teach and call it OWL, to use that curriculum and to label it OWL. You have to be a member of those, I believe. I just completed my training this summer and they made a big deal about that. And if you don't teach it in its entirety, you can't call it OWL. Like there's
Right.
these guidelines. So I don't know how, if moving forward with this NAUA, I'm looking at my notes, sorry, how that'll impact our ability to use that curriculum.
It won't. We aren't
Okay.
leaving the UUA.
Okay, that
We
was my
will-
question.
No, we have no, we're not
It's an
talking about.
also.
It's a totally different thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
great.
we will
That was my
stay members of the UUA for now anyway, until much later down the
Okay.
road. So it won't
Okay.
affect OWL at all. But
Mhm.
I just wanted to add to your conversation and to everybody's, just a reminder that it wasn't even just COVID or our split, in our church split that has decreased our RE attendance and certainly our OWL. When I was an OWL facilitator, which I did for 3 years for the 7th through 9th grade, we had to cancel 2 for a year one time. I mean, it sort of seems, Betsy, after our kids grew up, there just weren't any children. There just
Right.
weren't any people coming in.
Right.
And my son is 26 now, so
Yeah.
it's been a long time, and so I just didn't want to. I don't want anybody to think that it was because of COVID or because of our split in our church issues. We had huge struggles trying to get people to commit to that level of intensity of training
Mhm.
for OWL for 20. It was 27 weeks long,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
kids were busy, and parents were like, "Are you kidding me?" And there were,
Oh, it was kind of hard. I mean, it was
It
good,
is.
but it was hard.
it's very hard.
Yeah.
So,
Because
I mean, if anything, the UUA really should be thinking about their curriculum to bring that into this time in history
Yes.
where people are. There's got to be other ways to deliver that curriculum, which is fabulous,
really
It is.
but it doesn't work for a weekly meeting for 27 weeks. It just doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, I took it and it was really long and my mom obviously was facilitating. It's like you are saying, and that's what we've been talking about, is we're having trouble getting, we only have 2 facilitators trained and willing, me,
Mhm.
myself and Marianne. And we're trying to get more. It'd be great to have a male facilitator, or somebody of color or something other than, what we've got. But we're struggling to
okay.
get people to commit to that and
It's hard.
everything.
It's hard to get the facilitators, but if you have a whole bunch of facilitators and no kids, it's not going to matter.
Right. Yeah.
We need to do outreach with just what we've got right now
Yes.
and see if we can't run a class. But
I wonder,
boy, it's tough.
well, like I said, I have this meeting with them to talk about outreach. It's directly following the second service at the church on the 6th of November. We're going to talk about that. I don't know when we meet in November, but maybe I can take better notes than I did last time and bring what our ideas are to our next board meeting, because we need to do something, I want the kids. I want to hang out with kids.
Stay in there, Lilia.
You've just discovered, a budget priority. A budget priority could
I
be
did it.
a packet of money that would facilitate, that would bring this about, whether it was more help with the technology and social media, or whether it was whatever it happens to be. But you just discovered, put your finger on a budget priority.
Yeah.
Yay, I'm learning.
Mhm.
Okay.
Do
Well,
you have
good.
any, Lily, do you have any sense of whether this age group would be open to the idea of doing something via Zoom?
I taught during the pandemic. I'm sure kids will say they prefer it, but I'm not sure that we'll get the same based on what I experienced as just teaching in general during a pandemic. I'm not sure you'll get the same engagement or a solid attendance, and you can't assume that kiddos will have access to stable Wi-Fi at home. Like there's socioeconomic stuff. That would be my main concern. You'd have to kind of do a survey of the kids that want to participate and what they have access to. I also think with content like OWL and the curriculum, and it's kind of, I don't know that sensitive is the right word, but people feel uncomfortable, and it's sometimes better to have us all in person where you can look at other people without having to force people or ask people to turn their camera on to see that they're feeling the same things as you. I'm just trying to think from the teenage brain,
Yes.
if sex ed through Zoom would make the same impact as sex ed in a room with your peers.
Yeah, it's kind of a modified therapy group in some ways. Yeah.
I did it. I recommend it to everybody, but yeah, I'm not sure. I think we'd have to survey kiddos who are interested in their families and what their needs and access looks like. So
Yeah.
Survey the mamas, don't survey the kids. My son did not want to do OWL, and I threatened him that I was going to sit him at the kitchen table and go through the curriculum one-on-one with him, and he said, get me signed up to that class.
that's ironic, because I said I wouldn't do it unless my mom taught it, which is why she taught it. I was like, I'm not doing it unless you do it. So that's funny.
Family pressure, a positive.
So I don't know. I think we should talk. I hope we talk about it more, because when we talk about kids, I'll get all kinds of passionate. So,
Well, how about you be our informal liaison to that
yeah, I
project,
can.
and let us know, every board meeting, just give us a little update.
I can do that. I can take some notes on the 6th, and then at our November meeting, I'll give an informal. So I don't feel nervous, an informal update.
Yeah, informal, right, Lilia? There's a
Yeah.
lot of people in the church that would like to have the same passion and interest, not about restoring or reviving or whatever word you use, despite the demographics that have created the low census for kids at church. They want that to happen. So if we can and money lubricates all kinds of stuff. So
Yes,
if we can figure out some way to make it a budget priority, and with your passion and interest, find some way to do that outreach, then there will be a lot of people behind you and us.
Okay.
So
Something that needs to go into the thinking with even whether it's a budget package or what is, I would think that this program could be described without any reference to a church, that if you were
Yes.
advertising it more broadly in the community, that it could be done as something that's held at the UU church as a location, but not affiliated with it or connected with it, because it doesn't require anybody to be connected with it. And maybe you can make something out of that by broadening the appeal.
Yes, and in relation to that, the curriculum has a UU or UCC component, but that is optional from what I remember from my class. So you can include your values, your church values, but you don't have to. So if that would draw in more people to just take values out of it, then that would be something to think about. Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you.
Question that I have, in the discussions that are ongoing, is there a UCC participant, a participant from the UCC?
So from what I've gathered from Phyllis at our last meeting, I think that, and if anybody knows, I think the UCC just got a new minister. And he was nervous about starting without having his feet on the ground into something as big and important as OWL. But I wonder, what we've kind of talked about is if he'd be this new minister, if he'd be more interested and more comfortable getting their kiddos into it in a year from now, because that's kind of the timeline we're talking about, next fall, because that gives him time to, like we're talking about, get some outreach out, get his feet on the ground as a minister. So that's what I understand about UC. I know Phyllis especially is in communication with him. Phyllis has kind of been a badass, pardon my French, but in this organizing these meetings and stuff. So yeah, if we could get all three churches, just for the sake of kids getting an education involved in this, that would be awesome.
Yes, yeah.
Did that answer your question?
Well,
Okay.
so which churches, INUUC, the other UU church, and
And
what
then,
was the other one? The United Church of Christ?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes.
Okay, and all three of those,
We're all certified to teach it, so we should all be bringing in the kiddos.
that really expands the possible base.
Yes.
Wow.
And that's, Phyllis has been, she's my only connection to INCC. Is that what it is? I'll learn eventually. INCC? INUUC. Okay, I'm getting stumbled, but yes, she's my only connection to that split. And it seems that she's like kind of their spokesperson for OWL. So it seems like we're all, because we've talked about it, we need to focus on kids. And so it seems like everybody's game to just work together for this. So
Good. That's good.
yeah.
So next time, sounds like next time we meet, we'll talk more about budget priorities after we get the emails and maybe do a tallying, just like we've done in previous years about budget priorities. And then we're to have some question and answer time tonight. And one of the things that I wanted to bring up is that the next board meeting is scheduled for November 23rd. And
It's your birthday.
Yeah, that's my birthday. And isn't it the day before Thanksgiving?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so that's a travel day for lots of people. Do we always meet in November? Would we consider not meeting in November? How?
Probably we should move the date of the meeting rather than skip November.
Yeah.
Because we already skipped August or 1 month in the summer, and we only really technically get to skip one meeting a year. So,
Oh, I thought we only had 10 meetings that were.
oh, was it 10 or 11? I heard Tom say 11.
I thought it was 10.
10.
Yeah, 10, I think.
It's
Yeah,
10,
but-
I think.
It's 10, but November might be pretty, well, let's look at our board. What's on our board calendar coming up? Besides budget priorities for sure.
Yeah, maybe if we moved everything up 1 week, that is the
To the
Board of
16th.
Trustees
The
meeting.
19th of, or
Yeah, because what you say, Catherine, is definitely the case. A lot of people travel and who knows where they're going to be.
I know that I will probably be traveling, maybe starting on the 17th
Yeah.
or 18th. So and I do not think that I would be here for a 23rd meeting.
How about the Wednesday before then, the 16th?
The 16th, yeah, we could do that.
You actually have an option because there's a Wednesday before Thanksgiving and a Wednesday after Thanksgiving. So you
Still in November, you mean? That's true, there's one after, the last
Yeah.
day in November, is a Wednesday.
Maybe
That
that
might
would be
actually
best.
be better because the 16th feels like tomorrow.
Yeah,
Right.
Let's go for the 30th then.
okay,
Let's do that.
all right, good.
But yeah, let's keep the executive committee meeting on the 16th as it was anyway, and then we'll have to set the agenda, but we'll have the actual meeting on the 30th. How does that sound?
Okay,
That sounds good.
yeah, that sounds good. So, this is a question and answer time. Is there anybody here that has questions? I don't think we have anybody except just us'ns.
Ah,
We had Nancy here for a while, but she left.
All right. What about, can you, somebody give us a report? Are we all settled in with the Seattle Foundation now? Is that all
Oh, I
transpired?
heard.
I
yes,
can give a one-word report. The answer is yes.
Yes.
Funds have been transferred. They are at the Seattle Foundation. That is wrapped up in a pretty bow and delivered.
Very good.
congratulations, endowment team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
really.
My wife Karen and Margaret.
Yay, thank you,
Feeling very
Karen.
good
Yay,
about it.
Karen.
And
Wow.
the market's going up.
And the market's going up.
That's
right?
true.
We got our money in.
And we saved like 83K by pulling our money out when we did, because the market just continued to drop after we got it sitting in cash in the bank.
Yeah.
I
Good
think we
timing.
made out kind of like bandits on this one.
That was really amazing timing. Wow.
Wish I could take credit. Wish I was that good with my own money.
Well, I'm not opposed to us ending early unless we have something that we really need to talk about.
Excuse me.
Okay,
So, Catherine, just real
Yes.
quick. So you're going to send an email and I'm going to, just a to-do list, a quick to-do list. I'm going to contact Rebecca about the missing policy. And you're going to send an email with, or Dick is going to send an email with prior, somebody is.
Right.
gonna-
What I'll do is I'll dig out the stuff from my year. It simply serves as kind of like a model and to stimulate the thinking, but you can see how we went about it. Worked pretty well.
Okay,
right. And then after we get that, I'll send out something to have everybody rank order their priorities.
sounds good.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, very good. I will say good night and have a good rest to all. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Good night.
Good night.